in honor of a very big week in Chapel Hill. We got a lot to talk about here on the Talking Hills podcast. The guy to my right, Mr. Jordan Falls. I'm Nick Delahanty. Thank you all for joining us once again here, like I said, on the Talking Hills podcast. It's a big weekend in Chapel Hill, and you're going to be fortunate to be there, Jordan.
Yeah, it's a huge weekend, not only on the football side, but some basketball talk as well. And inching closer, under 30 days to tip off. So it's an exciting time around Chapel Hill. Football's 5-0 and basketball's around the corner.
I kind of feel like it's sacrilegious to be excited about basketball season the way that the football team is playing. Do you feel that way, or is it just me?
Yeah, I agree with you there. But, I mean, it's been that way in Chapel Hill for a long time. Basketball overshadows everybody, so football takes a back seat. That's the way we've kind of been raised as Tar Heel fans in the last 25 years. Is basketball is what matters, and football is, we've never been this good in football during our lifetimes. So, yeah, it's kind of, we might not know how to handle it, right?
Yeah, we're going to have to learn on the go because this team is finally starting to click on all cylinders. They're coming off a 40-7 victory over Syracuse this past weekend. Drake May, phenomenal, just under 500 yards passing. Seemed like everybody and their brother, including you and your brother in the crowd, actually got a pass thrown to them by Drake May. Tell us about that atmosphere in Chapel Hill on Saturday, and what did you see from a live perspective on that game?
Yeah, the atmosphere was great Saturday. I got a little worried about 2.5, 3 hours kickoff. I didn't see as many people around Franklin Street as I had the first two games, but the crowd showed up for Syracuse. It was lively. Seemed like everybody took our advice on from keeping it heel. Don't look past Syracuse, and the Tar Heels certainly did not look past Syracuse. They played the best performance we've seen of the season, and that could very well be a shutout, with the exception of if Syracuse don't pick up that 3rd and 15 there in the third quarter, it might be a shutout for them. And they played their best game, but there's a lot of work to improve on.
Absolutely. But before we get into a bit of the details here, we have to give your brother a shout out here because I'm going to call it. I'm going to say it as it is. Your brother is the reason why Kobe Paysor had a 100-yard receiving day. Am I wrong by saying that?
No, not at all. He had a good look pregame at the Bell Tower Walk. Hey, he's the president of the Kobe Paysor fan club at this point.
Listen, I saw that video. You sent it to me, and I'm like, this guy's going to go off today. The way that Kobe just went over, they gave a nice embrace. They hugged each other. I knew Kobe was locked in from that moment on, and he actually was number 1 on SportsCenter top 10. So I'm starting to think that we might have to start this as a trend here.
Yeah, I told Brandon, I was like, you need to send Kobe a DM and be like, hey, pregame hub, Bell Tower, next Saturday before Miami. Like, let's get this thing rolling. Weekly tradition.
We love weekly traditions, and we also love wins. But let's start in that game early. Carolina gets on the board right away. A little bit of a disappointment. They don't score 7. They go and they kick a field goal to start their first drive. They get the ball back, and what looked to be a situation where they were going to punt and Syracuse was going to get the ball back, that quickly changed. Ben Kiernan's punt gets blocked. Kiernan makes a very big heads-up play and runs like he's a running back, gets drilled out of bounds. And, of course, Syracuse fans are going to say it was a questionable call as to where he was hit out of bounds. But that dude is one tough man if you saw the way his face mask took a beating from that hit.
Little like first down to me. I think he should have got
it. Me too. I'm not gonna argue with it.
If it wasn't a first down, with the way his face mask bent, we should be making the case for targeting too. But yeah, it was Kieran actually had a Q&A the other day with Inside Carolina. It was interesting to hear him talk through the plays. Like, he's not even looking at the blockers, and he just heard the ball. He hears the ball get blocked. Like, that's how he's trained his mind. And so he looks up and finds it, and he got a really good bounce and made a heads-up play. It was funny. Me and Brandon was listening to the Carolina podcast on the way up with Jones and Adam Lucas, and Jones made the comment, anytime number 85 is back for Syracuse, look out, something crazy is going to happen. Like, that's what. So it was funny. Right before the play, Brandon tapped me. He's like, "Hey, something's about to happen here." Well, something did happen. We didn't think it was going to be that, but yeah, Kieran made a heads-up play, and then Carolina was able to capitalize on the big play and go down and get 7. Really put them up 2 possessions, and kind of felt like they got Syracuse back on their heels a little bit.
Yeah, and of course, we're not taking anything away from it. The special teams unit has to be better. Obviously, that's the case. We can't afford that. Special teams blunders are going to not go your way every so often. Fortunately, it worked out for the Tar Heels, and Kieran made a heck of a play. But that was the turning point of the game. If you look back at this game and you look at how this game played out, that score meant so much because it really put the pressure on Syracuse that they felt they could not play their game, and Carolina took advantage from there.
Yeah, they wanted to play ball control. They wanted to use Allen and Schrader in the option run game and try to alternate between those two. And when it became evident that they had to start throwing the football a lot more than they wanted to and not be able to play that clock management ball control that we're going to see a lot of teams do this year to keep Drake off the field, it really put them back in a position where they were uncomfortable. And Carolina took advantage. Eventually 10-0 turned into 17-0 and so on. So, yeah, that was a huge play.
Of course. And what this game basically told me, and I want to hear your thoughts on this as well, Carolina was the better team, and by a lot. There was no debating that.
Yeah, I think we both kind of felt that way last week before the game. And then obviously the Tez news, which we'll get to, and him becoming eligible, really elevated Carolina's offense. There's always like a little doubt that Syracuse might be better than what they actually are or the opponents they have played. But it turns out their level of competition has not been to where Carolina's has and to the level that, and they're not seeing offense like Carolina's, and that was very obvious Saturday.
Speaking of Tez Walker, what'd you think of his debut? 6 catches, 43 yards. He played a lot of snaps, really wasn't heavily involved in the offense, but still was productive in his first game as a Tar Heel.
I was very surprised that he played as many snaps as he did. I thought that, he played pretty much 50% of the snaps. The offense had 99 snaps. Insane to have that amount of snaps in college football, especially today with no first down clock or the first down not stopping the clock. So 9 offensive snaps is insane. And Tez playing 54 of them, but they got him on the field as much as they could. And obviously he looked a little lost at times. He's not practiced in 3 or 4 weeks. So sometimes he ran a wrong route, but things that might not have been evident on TV, but he made catches. Drake missed him twice. One in the corner of the end zone, there was nobody around him, which I think showed off his speed and the elite athleticism and route running. And then the other time, Drake hit McCullum for a 50-yard bomb to the 1-yard line. And if you look on the screen, Paul's on still shot. Tez is on the other hash mark, and he's 10 yards behind the DBs too, and he was double covered. So it was obvious that Syracuse was so worried about Tez Walker, and he's not even played a game. So now that he has played a game and now he gets to practice a full week, imagine what that's going to do to opposing defenses going forward.
Yeah, it's insane. And 3 plays stood out to me with Tez Walker, and you mentioned the 2 of them. The first one was the seam route he ran over the middle of the field, and Drake May just missed him. It was a terrible throw. It looked like it was going out of bounds. Tez kind of tried to come back at the ball, couldn't get there. But you look at the field around them, there was nobody there, which shows just how elite speed and athleticism this guy has. Then the play downfield, Drake was basically like, I got 2 guys. I might as well throw it to the one I've been comfortable with. Let's rock with it. The third play, late in the game, I think it was their last offensive drive, Tez Walker makes like a leaping catch on the sideline. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, there's no way this guy's catching his ball. The way the ball was going and where he was, and he just leaped out of nowhere and made a heck of a grab. That just goes to show what he adds to the offense. And it's so exciting to think what he could bring to the table, because that athleticism, that you can't hide that. You're not going to stop at every single play. He's going to get open. He's going to make plays.
Yeah, that catch you were talking about was he got his toe tapped down on the sideline perfect. And go back to the first play, the seam route where Drake missed him. Drake wasn't getting hit on the play, but that seam route they didn't just leave Tez open. Like, he got open, and he was open by a wide margin. So it's going to be interesting to see how it transitions going forward. I think we talked about it a little bit last week, but back in the preseason, they talked about before the South Carolina game, they had game plan with Tez and game plan without Tez. I imagine we saw the game plan without Tez on Saturday with just Tez running those routes designed for J.J. Jones or another receiver. Be interested to see what that game plan with Tez looks like. But he definitely opens up the field for more receivers. They can't cover Tez and Nate McCullum. They try to double team the play that Drake had his choice. McCullum was single covered, Tez was double covered, and Tez beat them both. And I think that'll be the case going forward. Drake hit 11 different receivers on Saturday. Phenomenal. Way to spread the ball around.
You had a couple of catches too, right?
I think I might. They asked to put me in the game late, and I just told them that we're okay.
It's all right. We're good. We'll pass on that. We'll stick to the broadcast booth, okay? But again, just to kind of recap, Carolina blows out Syracuse. They do what we thought they were going to do, take care of business at home. And that's going to set up a big-time matchup with Miami this upcoming weekend. But before we get to that, there is a big weekend in Chapel Hill. Like we mentioned earlier, basketball live action is going to be Friday night at the Dean Dome. We're going to be seeing the first of the men and the women's basketball teams. What are you expecting?
I really don't know what to expect. It's been a long time since I've been to a late night or a live action. It's been about 8 years, so I
still can't get used to calling it live action for some reason. It's late night to me.
It's always been late night. I miss when it was late night and they started at midnight, and then they went from midnight to starting at midnight and going to 9 p.m. and now it's starting at 7 p.m. But it's such a cool event. It's an event you get introductions from both the women and the men, and from what I've been to in the past, they do some little skits and things, and you get skills challenges and 3-point contests, and you get to see the two teams scrimmage within each other's programs, and it'll be a great chance to see a lot of newcomers for both teams, and it's a great way to kick off a weekend in Chapel Hill with basketball on Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And earlier in the week, the men's program had their media day. It was great to hear from some of the guys like RJ Davis and Armando Bacot talking about returning and trying to rewrite the ship from a year ago. But you also hear guys like Cormac Ryan, and you hear some of the things he says, and you just have to be excited about the guys who are coming in, because not only are they guys coming in, but they're guys with experience and leadership qualities. And that's something that should really help this team this year.
Yeah, it's something that even though last year's team had the experience per se, it just never felt like they had leadership skills that they needed. And when you put together three well-known seniors in Cormac Ryan, RJ Davis, and Armando Bacot, that's something that you can certainly look forward to. Is three guys that can take control of the locker room and control it. And Cormac Ryan's a guy that's not going to get rattled when he goes on the road to Virginia Tech or on the road to NC State. He's played at those places before, so that's something that can certainly bring the quality experience. And you got guys coming in that have played elsewhere. Harrison Ingram's played in the Pac-12. He's a rising junior, so he has 2 years of experience. So the transfer portal's looking to be a big help to rebuild this and roster from last year.
Absolutely. And the one guy that I was so excited to hear from on media day was Elliot Cadeau, freshman point guard, 5-star, reclassified to join the class of 23. And for as long as we've been waiting for him to come to Chapel Hill, one of the things that we haven't heard was him really talk to the media, and to hear some of the things he talks about, the learning curve, adjusting to certain things, working with the likes of RJ Davis, who I expect to see a lot of together. It's reassuring to have a veteran team around him, because as talented as he is, he's going to have a learning curve, and that learning curve is going to lead to great results, because obviously he's a great talent. But to take some of that pressure off early on, he could come in and be like, I don't have to be a superstar. I just have to do my job. And that could mean so much in the development of a young player.
Yeah, he don't have to be a superstar. Like you said, he can come in, just share the basketball, get the ball to RJ Davis, just take care of the basketball. That's all you got to do is as a point guard, and be a game manager and things like that. And when you have experienced guys like RJ Davis or Armando Bacot, it can certainly help. And Carolina fans have been a little iffy on the one and dones over the course of one and done, and that's something that Warrior Williams never used a lot of, but because you want the experience. But I think a good mix of experience and talent is great, even if it's young talent. And this team has that. It has the experience, and with 7 guys that are upperclassmen, and then you can throw in a one and done or a potential one and done like Elliot Cadeau, who can come in. They can guide him a little bit through non-conference play, and then you hope by the time January rolls around and you get an ACC play, he's learned the ropes a little bit and becomes not only that playmaker that you want to be, but a lot more mature.
I'm going to say it here, and I want it on the record, and you can look at Keeping It Heel because I put it in his player preview as we kick those off. Elliot Cadeau is going to challenge that 7 assist mark that's so very difficult to achieve. Only 5 other Tar Heels have ever done it, and the names on that list are pretty damn impressive. I see him challenging it, and one of the things I loved what he said was, I have a 2-year plan. He's not thinking one and done. Obviously, if he has a great year and the NBA is calling, he's not going to think twice about it. He's going to go. But he also has in mind that if I need that development, I'm not opposed to coming back. I feel like some one and done potential players have that in their mind where they're checking out. I feel like his mentality is in the right place. And I think that's going to help this team go a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's really key, essentially. Like, if you're just like a Gigi Jackson type of player that's like, I'm one and done no matter what, and no knock on Gigi, but one and done no matter what, then do you really care about the team's success as a whole or the program? Or are you just using this as a stepping stone just to get where you want to go? And that's what it is. Then maybe just go to the G League. But by Cadeau reclassifying, he gives himself that 2-year plan opportunity because he's supposed to be a high school senior right now. Next year is supposed to be his freshman college year. So he's not setting himself back if he does stay 2 years. Been over 10 years now, but Harrison Barnes was a one and done prospect, number 1 recruit in the country when he came to Carolina, and he stayed 2 years to develop. And he had a great freshman year, but he came back to just improve just a little bit more. And so I don't think that's out of the question for Cadeau to look at a 2-year plan. I do think he's gonna be a one and done, but at least he's not looking at that like that.
Yeah, and you mentioned Harrison Barnes. Think about it. If he doesn't come back for that second year in Chapel Hill, does he go on to have such a long, successful career in the NBA? Those are some of the things that you have to look at in terms of development. And for a guy like Cadeau, yes, you have that 2-year window. And I like that mentality where, he's focused on the now. And that's a great thing to have. And no disrespect to Cole Anthony, I'm going to bring him up as an example. He's a very recent example. It never felt like Cole Anthony was going to be here past his freshman year. It just felt like wherever he was going to get drafted, he was going. It was a stepping stone for him. And that's okay. Everybody has that different, viewpoint. But it's kind of refreshing to see Cadeau really understanding the position he's in and not looking too far ahead.
You feel like Cadeau is probably more of a Kobe White example, where Kobe White had the talent to be one and done, but we never really started talking about Kobe White being a one and done until halfway through that freshman year.
Yeah, I think Cadeau has more hype than Kobe White did. I think he comes in and everybody knows that he's a very big talent and could play at that next level. But Kobe White's situation was so different because nobody expected him to be as good as he was his freshman year. Everybody thought he was going to be a 3 to 4 year guy. And then the NBA came knocking. Yeah, he just skyrocketed up the draft board. And if you're Carolina, how do you tell them, it's smart for you to come back? You can't.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of talk about Cadeau being the best point guard since Kendall Marshall. Does he live up to those expectations, or is he be just under Marshall's passing ability?
I got to tell you, I saw Cadeau play his freshman year at Bergen Catholic High School. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm a St. Joe's grad, so Bergen Catholic and St. Joe's are big rivals. He dominated the basketball game as a freshman at the varsity level. 2 big-time programs going at it. He had 30 points. I'm pretty sure he didn't miss a shot. Like, that's how good he played. But the one thing that really stood out to me was his playmaking ability and what he does for his teammates. He makes that extra pass. He drives to the lane and finds the big. He does so many things. Obviously, that was the only time I got to see him because he sat out his sophomore year. He was hurt. Junior year, he transfers to Link Academy. But from that moment on, I was like, man, this kid's a stud. Like, you just got to admit it. I'm excited to see what he's got. I really am. I think with the veteran team around him, guys like Cormac Ryan, Harrison Ingram, Paxton Wojcik, Armando Bacot, they're going to benefit from this guy being on the court. Do I want to say he's going to be as good as Kendall? I don't want to put that much pressure on the kid. He's still a freshman in college.
He's supposed to be
still
a freshman.
Yeah, he's still supposed to be a high school senior, so I'm not going to put that on him, but I do think that he has the potential to be that next guy that we say, man, it was so much fun watching him in Chapel Hill.
I definitely think he can at least push that 7 assist mark, especially with the amount of scorers that are on the floor for Carolina between RJ Davis, Armando Bacot. I think Cormac Ryan's will be a huge impact guy on the perimeter for the Tar Heels, and that'll be a guy that Cadeau looks to go to. But he'll definitely be looking pass first for sure. I don't think that's something that Hubert would say, hey, we need you to score. I don't think that's the case. I think we just need you to share the basketball and don't turn it over more than 2 times a game.
Think about this, and I want to put this into perspective for Tar Heel fans out there. Armando Bacot has never played with a point guard that could get him the ball near the rim.
Yeah, essentially.
How much is that going to benefit guys like him, Jalen Washington, Jalen Withers? Jalen Withers is a freak athlete. You mean to tell me that they're not going to have some alley-oops? Like, think about the old Tar Heel days where you had guys flying all over the place. We haven't seen that in a long time.
Well, that was talked about at Media Day, too, from Hubert Davis, was we want to play fast. And that's something that I feel like Carolina fans have been wanting from Hubert Davis's offense the first 2 years is there is no fast break. There is no secondary break. We're walking the ball to half court, and we're not sharing the basketball in the half court either. And so getting back to that Roy Williams type of offense where we are pushing, you get the rebound and you go push the ball up the other team's back and make them get back. And if they don't, then we got a layup or a kick out for a 3, but at least run some type of fast break, secondary break offense. And I think that's where Cadeau and RJ Davis being able to share the ball, push the ball at the floor. Remember the days when we get a rebound, the ball wouldn't touch the floor. It'd just be passes all the way up the floor. And those are fun. That's fun when you're playing that fast and that good. And I think that's what a lot of UNC basketball fans want to see. And I think Cadeau gives you the opportunity to do that.
I sure want to see that. I hope that we see at least a little bit of it this year because that's a lot of fun basketball. But let's transition over to the women's side. Pretty big news broke this week. The Tar Heels lost 2 players before the season even started. Those players are Sierra Toomey, the number 3 ranked player in the class of 23, and Layla Hall, who was the Gatorade Player of the Year in her home state. Both players are going to redshirt because of previous injuries they suffered in the high school level. Now, how do you think that impacts Courtney Banghart's team this year?
I don't think it, as we was talking before the show, I don't think it impacts much. I think that the Tar Heels are so deep depth-wise that actually might benefit the program long-term to have these players an extra year later down the road where you're going to lose other players to graduation in a year or 2. So, again, that extra year experience in practice and seeing things develop on the bench might help these players develop long-term. And then when you have transfers coming in like Maria Gotten down low, Toomey is definitely talented. Maria Gotten's was ACC all-defense team last year. And so I think that helps. When you have so much depth, it makes these decisions easier instead of rushing a player back from injury.
Think about it. Toomey and Hull are both front court players. But if you look at the front court, you have Poole, Gokten, Utsby. Those 3 are going to play a lot of minutes. Then you have players like Tioni Key, who was a factor last year. Alex Zelaya, who's a senior, who has experience off the bench and could be a pivotal reserve. So they're not hurting in the front court like they were a year ago. They're stacked in the front court. So for this year, the redshirt actually pays off because Sierra Toomey is a player that you expect to play immediately, given her stature and her rank. So giving her a year to develop, she'll be ready next year when maybe Alyssa Utsby moves on because, she doesn't have to use that 5th year of eligibility. Maybe Poole moves on. Maybe Zelaya goes on. There's so many questions regarding the front court. Now you're getting those 4 years where she could capitalize on them. And the same thing with Hall.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the biggest thing is land and develop. If you're in a situation where you only had 2 bigs down low, okay, maybe you play them. They're still recovering from injury, but maybe they play in January. We got 5 bigs down low. Why waste talent like Sierra Toomey? Why waste a year of her eligibility to play her 4 minutes a game? Or even Layla Hall. Like, why do you play them 4, 5, 6 minutes a game when you can piece together at 40 minutes per game from those 5 players and save their eligibility for next year? That's the biggest thing.
And especially if they're not ready for opening night. If they miss non-conference play or a little bit of non-conference play, it's going to be very difficult to transition them in conference play when every game matters so much. And not to say they can't handle it, because they can. They're both very talented players. But when you're a freshman going to that level and you miss time and your teammates are gelling and the rotation starts to take form, it's kind of hard to get yourself into it.
Yeah, non-conference play is to get experience, figure the things out. For the coaching side of things, it's to figure out that rotation, who plays well together on the floor at the same time, what combination works best. If you miss the non-conference portion, not only have you missed half your season, but you don't know who gels with what. You're messing up your rotation into January and February in key games, and the Tar Heels are playing for an ACC championship this year, and hopefully a deep run into March. You don't want to do anything to throw that off, and then you don't want to waste the player's eligibility for half a season either.
Exactly. Now, oh yeah, of course. Now, before we head back to football, I have one question for you. Give me one player on each team that you're most excited to see on Friday night at live action.
Okay, the men's side, I'm gonna say Jalen Withers. This is a lot.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Hard, just because everybody's talking about his athleticism and how freakish athletic he is. Very interested to see like what he does Friday night. And then on the women's side, probably Lexi Darnowski, just because she's the incoming transfer Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year 2 years in a row, and probably the most talented transfer incoming. Everybody else is upperclassmen, experienced, and we've seen them last year, so you kind of know what to expect as far as the starting five should be, with the exception of Maria Gopton, and we've seen her in ACC play, so we kind of know a little about her. But we go to Darnowski and Withers.
If it was a shot blocking contest, Gopton would be the answer.
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. Absolutely.
100% would be the answer, because she is a beast underneath the basket. Now, back to football. Top 25 matchup coming that Saturday night. You're going to be in Chapel Hill. I know you're excited. You don't even want to talk about live action. You're like, I don't even want live action. Let's play football Friday night. Let's go.
Let's get to Keenan.
I'm pretty sure that as soon as the game ended this past weekend, Jordan was like, let's go on the air and talk about Miami. Like, let's do it. Like, before we even know what they do.
I texted you during the game. Like, I was ready to tweet. Can we start talking about Miami yet? Like, with like 10 minutes to go in the fourth quarter, like, I didn't even care about the Syracuse game. Like, let's get to Miami. This is a big game.
This guy was way too excited, I got to tell you. But Miami had a little bit of a setback this week.
They had a setback that 12-year-old in Madden doesn't have. Like, I don't know.
Listen, are you calling me a 12-year-old on Madden? Because I don't punt. I don't take a knee. None of that. I am Mario Cristobal's like long lost kid.
Oh man, that, and what's crazy is, have you seen it? This isn't the first time this has happened for Cristobal. Have you seen
They've done it?
It happened at Oregon. Like,
yep.
And then I saw this thing on Twitter going around. Miami has been up big in games. Like, they've won games 38-3, 48-7, 41-7. They have not need to end a game this year. None of those games they took a knee. They ran the ball. So they're not taking knees up 31, much less up 3 or 4. It's crazy. I don't know what happened. Mac touched on it in his press conference, said we shouldn't judge. We don't know what happens on the sideline. It gets chaotic. Sometimes you get 10 players on the sideline or on the field, 12. I get that, but man, take your time. You had a timeout. Take your timeout. Like, when you see you're not in benching formation, take your timeout.
Yeah, absolutely. But in case you weren't aware of what happened, Miami held a 3-point lead over Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech obviously isn't your top tier ACC program, but regardless, they played them tough. Miami elects to run the ball instead of just taking a knee to kill the clock. Fumble ensues. Georgia Tech, of course, goes down the field, scores with 1 second left on the clock, and that's your ball game. And that's a loss that really could hurt Miami, especially now when you're looking at ACC play. And Miami is a good team. Do not let that Georgia Tech outcome fool you. They are a good team. They are one of the top run defenses in the country. Say what you want about their strength of schedule. They did beat Texas A&M, but the rest of the schedule has been a little iffy. This is a case of where I think, I don't want to say they were looking ahead, but I think that they thought they had Georgia Tech taken care of. And, you know, any given Saturday, anything could happen. And this Miami team, I think, is going to be stronger because of it, because they're not going to overlook or underestimate anybody, and they're going to come and give the Tar Heels everything they got on Saturday night.
Yeah, the guy was down in the Miami game. The officials made the blunder there, but you still take a knee. But yeah, Miami is really good. You mentioned their run defense. They haven't. Their strength of schedule is 107 in the country, so it's not great. But they did beat Texas A&M by 2 possessions, 48-33, and they looked really good in that game. And that's the game. That's the team that Carolina will see Saturday night. I have no doubts about it. But they kind of handled Georgia Tech the way we were pessimistic that the Tar Heels would handle Syracuse, like trap game, looking ahead to a big game the following weekend. Mac even touched on his press conference yesterday where he was talking about last week. There's a lot of talk around Chapel Hill about Miami. We handled Syracuse. Miami got caught looking ahead, but yeah, they're very good. Number 1 in the country in rushing defense. They're only giving up 48 yards per game rushing.
And now think about this. A loss like Miami just suffered could lead a team in one of 2 ways. One, it could be a wake-up call that you desperately needed. Don't bet against a guy that has nothing to lose. That's what Miami's at right now. You have one ACC loss. Anything else basically eliminates you from ACC title talks unless something crazy goes on and everybody starts to lose. The other way that it could go is this team could completely spiral from it. Questioning what the coach is doing with the not taking a knee. Really frustration over that loss. So there's 1 or 2 ways it could go. And if you lose to Carolina on a Saturday night, it's leading in that negative direction.
Yeah, you can't. We've heard Matt Brown say a lot. You can't let one loss beat you twice. And it happened to the Tar Heels last year. They lost to Georgia Tech, and they let it beat them in the NC State game. And Miami can't let that happen. You already see some players. I don't know if you saw it. I saw this on Twitter, or X or whatever we're calling it now.
Tomorrow might be why.
Yeah, maybe. There's a video of Miami. I don't know what position he plays. Could be linebacker for all I know. But he's still on the sideline when they run the ball and fumble, and you can just see you can kind of read his lips, and he kind of
says, "What the beep are we doing?"
He kind of says on his face, but he's like, "What are we doing?" And so if that's the mindset the players start to take in that locker room, "Oh, we've lost faith in Mario Cristobal," well, then they might spiral out of control. But if the coaching staff is able to get hold of the reins and turn it around, well, then they're coming into Chapel Hill all fired up and ready to get their win back that they lost on Saturday night.
One thing that scares me about this game is Miami had everything go wrong against Georgia Tech. Mm-hmm. Tyler Van Dyke, who is very, very efficient with the football, threw 3 interceptions. That does not happen. Add those 3 interceptions to his career total. He has 15 interceptions and 714 pass attempts. This is a guy that doesn't turn the ball over. That's scary. Then you have the fumble, doesn't go their way. The last second touchdown doesn't go their way. Sometimes things are going to start to go your way. And I sure as heck hope it don't happen in Chapel Hill. But, eventually something's going to go in the Hurricanes' favor.
4 of those 15 interceptions from Van Dyke are against Carolina. He threw
very good point.
2 years ago when they came to Chapel Hill, he threw 3 interceptions, and they still only lost by 3. 45-42. One of those interceptions was with I think 6 seconds left. Cedric Gray hit him in the pocket, and ball went up there, and Cedric Gray got an interception. And Carolina was able to hold on, but that was in the red zone. He threw a pick, and then last year he threw 1 interception, and it was with 10 seconds left in the red zone or from midfield. He was on a deep out. So both of those were 3-point wins, and we'll get into Miami history a little bit more. But Van Dyke is a very good quarterback. And they are very balanced on offense. They're averaging 294 on the air and 211 on the ground. So pretty as close to balance as you can get.
Before we get into our keys to the game in this one, you wrote a great piece for Keeping It Heel, and I hope everybody takes a chance to read it. Kind of talking about the history of Miami and UNC. And this is a very competitive rivalry that's been brewing in Chapel Hill and Miami.
Yeah, it has been since the Hurricanes joined the ACC in 2004, and all Tar Heel fans remember that game. It's probably one of the most electric atmospheres in Keenan. Connor Barth hits a 42-yard field goal to beat the number 4 ranked Hurricanes at that point, 31-28.
That was a great game.
It was a great game. It was on Halloween Eve, night game. I feel like we always play Miami at night, which is great at home, but
little technical difficulties there, but go ahead.
Always great to have night games in Keenan, but yeah, 7 of the last of those matchups since they've joined, there's been 9 matchups in Keenan, and 7 of those have been decided by 6 points or less, and another one was decided by 9 points on field goal with like 2 minutes remaining to push it to 9 that Carolina won. So pretty much 8 of those 9 matchups have been one possession games in Keenan. The one I think Carolina beat Miami 59-21 in 2015, that historic year for that team. So, and then if you break it down even further, just take the last 7 matchups in the series. 5 of them have been decided by a touchdown or less. One team, there's been one blowout for each team. Miami beat Carolina 47-10, Larry Fedora's last year, and then Carolina had that historic game in Coral Gables 3 years ago when Javonte Williams and Michael Carter ran for, I think, 600 yards.
That was a lot of fun that night. But again, what Jordan's trying to tell you guys in the nicest way possible, your stress level is going to be up on Saturday night.
Yeah, it's going to be a battle, and it's going to be close. The crowds will need to be into it, which I have no doubt that will be. Like I said, everybody's ready to talk about Miami last week, so now they're really ready to talk about Miami this week.
Absolutely. Now, keys to the game. You mentioned it earlier. Miami's run defense has been very, very good. 2 opponents came close to rushing for 100 yards. 3, not so much. 1 only averaged, I think, 12 yards total. Can Carolina get something going in the running game, especially given that they're saying that there's going to be some rain in the area on Saturday night?
Yeah, that's the question, is can they get the running game going? We've talked about it. Their strength of schedule is not the best. They played Miami of Ohio. They played Texas A&M, which is great, but then they played the FCS school, Bethune-Cookman, and Temple. And then Georgia Tech isn't great, but Georgia Tech's not bad either. How good is Miami's defense? Is it really number 1 in the country? We're going to find out Saturday night. Can they handle Drake May and the Carolina offense, which we have seen is elite? And I think there's no question on that, despite who Carolina's played. I think it just got even better with Tez Walker to return. But establishing the run game early, I would say early and often, is going to be successful because it sets up that play action. The pass that Drake had to McCullum last week on that 50-yard bomb was off of play action, but it was because Carolina had ran the ball over and over again, and it pulls the safeties down, and they have to stay there for a minute. Otherwise, Amari Hamptons or British Brooks is going for 15 or 20 up the middle.
And we saw Marion Hampton get so hot early on in that Syracuse game, and he was getting 8 to 9 yards a pop, and he was just bulldozing people. That's what Carolina has to do in this one. Get the run game early. If it's raining, that's going to be even more pivotal. Get him going, open up the passing game, and like we touched on in the Syracuse recap, Drake May has so many options to work with that somebody's going to get open, and that the passing game is going to get the job done. May's just got to take care of the ball.
Yeah, and the offensive line has to give him time to find those open receivers. They might not be open in the first second. So when you have 11 different guys you're throwing to, somebody's going to be open, but you got to have time to throw the football. And I think we're seeing Amari Hampton start to become the RB1 here going forward. I think early in the year it was 50-50. Brooks missed a game. Hampton took off against App State. Last week he had 55 of the 99 snaps. So, and the other 3 running backs between Brooks, Elijah Green, and Caleb Huss split the rest of them. So I think we're starting to trend, which is what you like to see. You've been on Hampton since game 1.
I have, and you mentioned the game that Brooks missed, and it kind of feels like Hampton took advantage and Wally pipped him in a way, where we haven't seen much of British Brooks since. Yes, he's had his share of carries, but Hampton has taken the heavy load, and I think that's what Tar Heel fans wanted to see, because let's remember, Brooks has been a guy who has been injury prone. He's in his final year as a Tar Heel. Nothing against him, but Hampton has the better upside for now, for the future, and for him to develop as that RB1. That's huge for this team.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I think that transitions well into our next key, which is taking care of the football, and that's a star on the ground as well. When Hampton is running the football or when Drake is passing, you got to take care of the football. No turnovers. If you're playing Syracuse or Pitt, you might concern for a turnover here or there, but just you're more talented or more gifted. And Miami's really fast. They're really talented. They're really good at all their skill positions. Cannot give up free possessions. So take care of the football and making sure every drive ends with a kick, whether it's a field goal, a PAT, even if it's a punt, take care of the football. And if it is a punt, don't have any more block punts. That's back-to-back games with block punts. We have to figure out what's going on there. And if Kieran can't go, who's punting? Or who's the placeholder? So figuring out that those things that's a big key.
Is Drake May going to be the punter on Saturday night?
Hey, he did have a punt against Minnesota, and it landed inside the 20. So
he's capable. Drake May could do everything.
Field possession is key. So if we can get punts inside the 20, I hope we don't have to punt at all. Let's score every drive. Just go.
Let's give Kieran the week off and let's just score every drive. I like the sound of that. But of course, the defense has to do its job. In the last couple of weeks, they have 4 straight weeks with an interception, 3 straight weeks with 2 interceptions. Can they get the pressure on Tyler Van Dyke to make mistakes?
Yeah, the defense has been on. I mean, the defense this has been the best defense we've seen in Chapel Hill in probably since the Butch Davis era, when they had a Marvin Austin squad and things like that. Let's talk about Elijah Hussey for a minute. This guy.
I knew you were going to go there. It's we should just rename the show the Elijah Hussey Show. You know,
I've been on Hussey since before the Minnesota game, but this kid is good. He made the game-winning play against App State, made caused an incomplete pass there, but he has been thrown out 26 times and only 9 completions. This stats from David Hale on Twitter, or X. He's only allowing 34% of his completions. That's insane. Basically, you said pregame or before our show, he's Revis Allen. We're just calling it Hussey Allen.
He's a combination of Darrelle Revis and Sauce Gardner. I'm a Jets fan, all right?
And I think another key to the Carolina defense, this is also from David Hale, is Carolina's defense last year, time of possession. I don't think a lot of casual fans understand how much time of possession matters, but last year Carolina's opponents won the time of possession battle on average by 5 minutes a game. And this year, Carolina is winning time of possession by 4 minutes a game. That's a 9-minute swing where we have the ball and they don't. And essentially for opposing defenses or opposing teams, if they have the ball, that means Drake May's not on the field. And it's hard to score without the ball. You can, but it's very hard. And so when Carolina's winning those time of possession battles, that matters. And then if you're also winning time of possession, that means your defense ain't on the field. So they're getting to rest more on the sideline. We blamed a lot of the defense last year on just bad scheme, but when you're on the field more than the other team and on the field 15, 20 more snaps more than the other defense, you have no time to get a breather.
Yeah, and the personnel is a lot better this year, and you could see kind of the development of some of these guys. Des Evans, who doesn't get a lot of love on the outside, he might not fill up the stat sheet, but that guy is a hawk. He's all over the field. Power Echols and Cedric Gray. What more could you say about those two guys? You mentioned Hussey. They have a lot of guys on that side of the ball that are stepping up to the occasion. You see Bo Atkinson coming in and making plays. You have a guy like Amari Gaynor on the outside rushing the quarterback. Last year, the quarterback could sit and watch a 30-minute sitcom and find the receiver. This year, it hasn't been that case. They're chasing the quarterbacks around. They're making life difficult, and it's such a refreshing thing to see that it's starting to click after last year where if Carolina scored, you were thinking within 2 minutes the other team was going to score.
Right. Miles Murphy's another one. He won player of the game last week. And they're not filling up the box score. They're not putting up these ridiculous stats, but they're doing enough to create pressure up front, get in the backfield, and they're creating the pressure so that Cedric Gray and Power Echols can get through to the quarterback. So, and then also I think depth is another big one, and we've heard Matt Brown talk about this, but when you're able to have two deep essentially and rotate 8 guys through that defensive line, the offensive linemen are on the field every play. But if you get 8 guys that are alternating every 3 plays, they can go full out, and then the offensive lineman's ready to block them again where they're already fatigued, and you bring in Bo Atkinson off the bench, and you're like, oh, this guy's full strength. Look, he's coming right by me. So that depth is finally starting to build. That's something Matt Brown's been striving for since he stepped foot in Chapel Hill, and it's finally starting to come together. It's another big challenge. This offense for Miami is the best one they've seen this year, so we'll see if just how good this defense is.
I don't want to say he's going to be as good as this player I'm going to reference him to. Okay, so I'm just going to put that out there right now. But Bo Atkinson has moves like JJ Watt.
I can see it.
He has, when you watch him rush the passer, he has playmaking ability like a JJ Watt or even his brother TJ Watt. He has that when he grows into his body a little bit and he starts getting those every down snaps, he's going to be a monster.
I love watching Atkinson play off the edge, and I hope to see him get more snaps as his career progresses. He had a chance for a fumble recovery Saturday, forced by Say Gray, and just overdosed the ball and went between his legs, but still forced a punt by Syracuse. That's huge. The other factor is going to be red zone attempts. Carolina had the ball 7 times in the red zone against Syracuse, against a weaker Syracuse team, so it didn't hurt you as much, but they only scored a touchdown twice. So 4 of those ended in field goals. And I think the other one was a Drake May fumble on quarterback sneak. So you got to put points on the board, and you really need touchdowns. When you're playing quality competition, you can't settle for field goals every drive. Scoring in the red zone was a problem under Phil Longo. It hasn't, or doesn't feel like it's been as much of a problem under Chip Lindsey, but it was last weekend, and it can't happen Saturday night.
I was going to just ask you if you saw Phil Longo on the sideline on Saturday. I thought maybe he made a cameo appearance, for old time's sake.
Oh. I hope they're doing well in Wisconsin.
Of course, yeah, but it just the red zone efficiency was at a low last year, and it's been better this year. Hopefully that keeps up. Now, you talked about it with me, and we've discussed this about national relevance. Okay, Mac Brown, and I believe you know the statement better than I do. Mac Brown basically came out and said that they're finally getting that national recognition. Is it too early?
So Matt Brown said in his radio show last night, or this was recording on Tuesday. So Monday night, he says in his radio show that when they came back, they wanted to be nationally relevant, and we are. So now we got to keep going. Essentially, verbatim is what he said. I think they are nationally relevant. People are talking about us. Every week you turn on College Game Day, they're talking about the Tar Heels. Whether it's Drake May, Tez Walker, they're talking about us. So I think when the national media starts talking about you, then you start to become nationally relevant. This is going to transition a little bit to big game talk that we'll have another article on Keeping It Hill this week. But in Kenan Stadium, we've only seen 5 top 25 matchups since 1998 when Mac left at the end of the 97 season. 3 of those were during the COVID year. So I think you could throw all 3 of those out because teams were ranked that year that probably didn't deserve to be ranked because half the country wasn't playing. So essentially 2 ranked matchups in Kenan Stadium in the last 25 years. And we get a third one this weekend. But and the Tar Heels ranked 12th in the country. If you beat Miami, you probably become top 10 and you start hearing maybe college football playoff dark horse or contender possibly if you run the table and beat Florida State. If you beat Miami, the schedule sets up to become 9-0, not looking ahead, but that's how it is. Virginia is not very good. Georgia Tech beat Miami, but they're still not as talented as the Tar Heels. And then you get Campbell. So there's no reason that they can't be in the national conversation. They're in the same spot TCU was last year at this point. So I think they are becoming national relevant. I don't think they are nationally relevant. So I think there's a
there's like a fine line there.
There's a fine line. Saying. They're making the right steps to become there.
The way I see this, and I love Mac Brown. He is the reason why I love college football, because when I was a young kid, I grew up watching the Texas Longhorns, and him and Vince Young were the cool people. They beat USC. That was enticing to me. I still have my Vince Young jersey. Maybe I'll wear it one day if Mac Brown decides to show up on the show. But one of the things that I hate for this team to do is start thinking about national relevance. One of Drake May's favorite quotes, and he said it on his Carolina Insider appearance last week: keep the main thing the main thing, and that's week by week. Yes, it is a great time to be a Tar Heel. Obviously, they're in the national contention. They're in the national talk. But you beat Miami, that noise is going to go up a little bit more, and that a little bit more might creep you into the top 10. And when you get into that top 10, then all the noise starts about the college football playoff. And then if you continue winning and Drake May starts playing higher level like he's been, then the Heisman Trophy chatter starts. Keep the main thing the main thing, and that's focusing on Miami, then focusing on Virginia, and so on and so forth. I love Mac Brown wanting to be nationally relevant and him coming out and saying it like, you know what, we are, but one loss and that's it. Like, that's out the window. That's how much each game matters. So you saw how much Miami dropped after losing to Georgia Tech. Yeah, if you lose to a top 25 team, you're not going to drop as much, but you're going to drop. And that just knocks you out of contention to what your goals are. So keep the main thing the main thing. Stop worrying about the national recognition, because if you take care of business on the field, it's going to happen.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with you totally there. Is just take care of your business on the field. And you talked about it a little bit after the game, the Syracuse game was, oh, if Miami loses to Georgia Tech, that's one game in the ACC that you cannot have to worry about to get the ACC championship. Well, just beat Miami, you don't have to worry about it at all. And I think that's a big step, is because the last time we've seen the Tar Heels in the top 10 was number 10 in the country preseason 2021. And at that point, you could have said they're nationally relevant. Sam Howell returning from the great 2020 year and Heisman Trophy candidacy talk. And they went out and lost 17-10 to Virginia and then just plummeted and went 6-7. So your ranking means nothing if you don't win games. And it starts Saturday night.
And that it does. And we're going to give you all of that information and more. Hopefully Jordan has a great weekend in Chapel Hill, because it would be very wrong if they lose when he's in the building. It might be a long trip home.
It'll be a very long trip home. For some perspective, this is per Am Lucas, just the fourth time in 133 years that Tar Heel fans get to see a 5-0 football team in Chapel Hill.
That's exciting.
Massive game.
I think that it is a massive game, and the hope is that obviously when we come back next week, we get to talk about another Tar Heel victory, but we'll have to wait for those results. And either way, we'll be here to discuss it and more. This was a jam-packed show, my friend.
Yeah, 100%. Close it off. If you want to be nationally relevant, beat Miami.
Beat Miami, and then worry about next week and keep the ball rolling. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to keep the ball rolling. Win or loss, we're going to be back in the air a week from today to give you more Tar Heel perspective. That's going to wrap up our episode of the Talkin' Heels podcast, episode number 7. Make sure you go to our channel on YouTube to find all of our show. And of course, you don't want to look at us, listen to the audio stream that can be found on Spotify and Apple Podcast. That's Jordan Falls. I'm Nick Delahanty. We'll talk to you guys really soon. Of course, I'm going to say it for Jordan. He'll probably get up and start pumping his chest. Beat Miami. Go Heels.
If you get to Keenan, be in Keenan.